Hi, I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too, without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now. Hello and welcome everyone. Of course, I'm your host, Daryl Urbanski. And today we've got a very special treat for you. Today we're being joined by Rick Barrera, and I'm going to do two types of introductions. So one, I want you to understand who we have on the call today and especially what he should be recognized for. But I also want to tell you a bit about him because I'm fortunate enough that I actually know Rick on a personal level. So first of all, Rick is a nationally acclaimed speaker, marketing consultant, and author, known throughout the Fortune 500 for his extraordinary speaking ability. He's been speaking for years and years, and his unique approach to brand building. His research on strategies used by breakthrough brands like Apple, American Girl, Minute Click, Lexus, Google, and Starbucks will change your thinking about marketing forever. He's helped hundreds of companies redesign their systems and implement a holistic approach to serving customers. His impressive client list includes Abbott Labs, AutoZone, Bayer, Caterpillar, IBM, Intel, Merrill Lynch, and Verizon. He's got a number of books. His newest one is Overpromise and Overdeliver, How to Design and Deliver Extraordinary Customer Experiences. He also is co-author of Non-Manipulative Selling, originally published by Prentice Hall, and Collaborative Selling, originally published by John Wildley and Sons. And I also am fortunate enough to know Rick, and he's actually a phenomenal human being, a very generous, very, very kind soul. He really does walk the talk, and he's just a wonderful family man and a very, very good friend and a very good businessman. And it's just, Rick, it's an honor to have you on the call today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm honored to make it onto the roster with Daryl.
Well, thank you.
Rarefied air up here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, the feeling's mutual, my friend. So we're on the call today. We want to talk kind of a little bit about you and your story and how you even got started. You've had an extensive career, and I love hearing your stories. In fact, even when I'll share, Rick, he's been in the game for so long and speaking from stage and been a bit of a celebrity for a while that he even was one of the first to have a cell phone back when it used to take up the whole trunk of your car, and he used to like playing jokes on his friends by calling them from their driveway and then just hanging up the phone, shutting his trunk, and going knocking on their door. And this is back again when cell phones like that didn't exist, so he was literally a magician, and that's just the kind of personality Rick has. So I love those kinds of stories, and you're just a really interesting character. But how did you even get into the game, like way back in the day?
Well, first I have to tell you the sort of the reverse of the cell phone story, which is, so I used to use it to play pranks on people, but the way it was priced back then, you paid for every minute.
Okay.
And it didn't matter who made the call. So my friends would call me just to run my bill up. So it would be in my car, and they'd all take turns calling me, because even if I just answered, to say, hey, stop that, it still cost me money. It was like $1 a minute or something like that. So
got it. You got the first laugh, but you got the last laugh.
Yeah, exactly. So, those of you who have all these, free cell phone minutes and unlimited texting and all that, you just don't understand that. You used to get, these bills for $300, $400 a month just for your car phone. It was crazy.
Yep.
So, it's interesting when you ask me how I get started. I started, when thinking about this, I was thinking about my professional career, but then I went back a step to sort of my teenage years, and then I had to go back sort of to the beginning. So, they say necessity is the mother of invention. I grew up in a little town called Derrick City, Pennsylvania. It's 1 mile long with 52 homes, and there's really nothing there. It's very rural in the middle of Pennsylvania. And so I was the youngest of 5 kids, and they're just, there was no way for me to earn money, and I joined the Cub Scouts, and I got the Boys Life magazine. in the back of the magazine, it said that you could sell seeds and you could make money. And so, I bought some seeds from the back of the catalog with, the few dollars that I had, and I went door to door and I sold seeds. And then there was another ad in the back of the magazine that said, that you could sell Christmas cards. So I sold Christmas cards door to door to the 52 homes. And then I became a paper boy to the 52 homes. And I sort of got a reputation. People saw me come and turn the lights off and hide behind the couch because they knew I was selling something. But, it was the only way I could earn money for candy and things like that as a kid. The things that I wanted, or, radios and, whatever toys I was trying to acquire at the time. So, the point was I learned to sell in my neighborhood to people who were, generally kind to me. And I think that had a profound effect. When I was 16, I saw an ad in the newspaper, and it said student with a car, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to pay me to drive. Like, what could be better when you're 16 than somebody to pay you to drive? And so I showed up for the interview, and the guy wasn't there. And I said, well, what do you mean he's not here? And they said, well, he left early. And I said, well, where is he? And they said, he's over at the Holiday Inn. Again, this was, back in rural Pennsylvania many years ago. So I went to the Holiday Inn. I said, where is the guy? And they said, room 315. So I went up to room 315 and I banged on the door. And I said, hey, we had an interview. And he came to the door in his boxer shorts, a T-shirt, and he had a six-pack under his arm. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, you and I had an interview scheduled, and you didn't show up, so I'm here for my interview.
Right. That's awesome.
And so he said to me, he goes, well, you're too young. I said, I'm a student with a car. That's what the ad said.
Right.
And he said, well, I was looking for a college student. I said, well, what can they do that I can't do? And he said, look, if you can find 4 people to work for me, by tomorrow, you got the job. So I said, well, that's easy enough. I went home and I called 4 of my friends and I said, you need to show up tomorrow, even if you don't want the job permanently, because I got to get this job as the manager. So 4 of my friends showed up, and all 5 of us showed up in the office. And he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, you really did? And I said, yeah, I did. And so I got the job, and it was selling newspaper subscriptions over the phone. And so I learned an enormous amount from him about, how to learn, how to sell over the phone. And I mean, it was a tremendous education, cold calling on the phone, selling newspaper subscriptions. And I did that all over the area. And then I actually turned out to be one of the top producers in the country. And so they sent me in the summertime, they were sending me to, Philadelphia and New Jersey and places like that to do it full time. I went down to Pittsburgh and I had 3 shifts a day, 140 people working for me when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
So that was, really, really good, good learning. And it was sort of humorous because the CEO thought that I was in college. And so, he came to take me out to dinner and tell me what a great job I was doing, and he was buying the cocktails, and I couldn't drink them because I wasn't 21. And I couldn't tell him I wasn't 21, and I didn't want to get carded. So that was fun.
That's awesome.
But then I went to college so I could get a good job, and had a lot of jobs in between. And then, where my sales career really started is that when I was in college, I was doing sales, and I was doing pretty well, and some people asked me, they said, hey, you're doing pretty well in sales. Can you come over and teach my salespeople what you're doing? And again, it was, sort of a rural area with, much more networking than, formal.
Right.
And so I started doing sales training on the side, and then I found a sales training franchise and paid $10,000 and got into a sales training franchise. That turned out to be a bust. They went bankrupt, but got me into the business, and that's how I started.
That is excellent. What a great story. Yeah, no, I can speak from experience. You definitely know your stuff, and you've got great content. And I love even your approach. It almost sounds, in some ways, kind of like the Socratic method, just because you love using questions and that sort of thing. So, what was kind of your biggest challenge, I guess, in your business career, or just in sales? I mean, because it's something so many people struggle with. You know, they feel like they're competing with their client, or that, there's always like the whole like, you gotta take the bull by the horns, kind of sales guys. That's like, go out there and sell, and and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah, the approach is backwards. So I always felt, not when I was selling seeds and cards. I was, just a kid trying to figure things out back then. But, well, I got a business degree, and I always wanted to be a doctor, really, because I thought it'd be really cool to be able to heal people. I thought that.
I didn't know that.
That's sort of miraculous, yeah. But, I didn't like the sight of blood, and I couldn't get through chemistry. So I decided that probably was not going to happen.
Right.
But I got a business degree, and part of the reason was because I worked in a lot of retail settings, and I really felt like it was helping people. People would come in and they'd say, I don't understand this, or I need help with that, or I'm trying to find this, and we'd help them. I worked for a company. It was a retail store that we sold cameras, guns, motorcycles, sporting goods, and audiovisual equipment, and stereo equipment. So it was all big boys' toys.
Right.
I mean, there was nothing that was mission critical. So our motto was, if you need it, we don't have it, but if you want it, we've got it. And so people were always coming in and they'd say, hey, I want to get into photography, but I don't know how. And so we'd help do that. Or, I'm trying to, learn about, stereo equipment. I don't know anything about it. It's very expensive. And so we'd educate them. So it was a very much a relationship sell, even though it was retail.
Right.
And I really liked that whole sense of helping people. And then I worked for a jewelry store. It's the same thing. You're helping people pick an engagement ring that they're going to wear for the next, 100 years, hopefully. It's a big decision.
Right.
And so, it's much more about helping than it is about, selling the biggest diamond in the room or whatever it might be. It's really, becomes very personal and very relationship focused. And I like that. And so, when I got into the sales training franchise, it was, much more manipulative tactics and things like that. And then I met, Tony, Alessandra, and Phil Wexler, and we sat and we were talking about the selling process. And Tony had sold, pots and pans to, unsuspecting young women who were engaged. Well, that was the profile. They had to be engaged. So it was the mother and this engaged woman, and so Tony would pull all of the pots and pans. They do it at the mother's house, and they pull all the pots and pans that she collected over the years and put them on the floor. And he'd say, and you know what that looks like in any typical house that's, raised children to the age of, where they're getting married, is there's one of these and two of these and a brown one and a green one and a blue one and a burned one and a broken one. And right. And he would look at the mother and he'd say, is this what you want for your daughter?
Mm.
And the mother would say, oh, no, she needs this beautiful gleaming right here.
Right.
And so this was, it was a huge manipulation, and obviously, the poor daughter is sitting there going, wait a minute, my mother was supposed to protect me from the evil sales guy, and now my mother and the sales guy are ganged up on me.
Right. Right.
And so, so that was Tony's deal, and Phil used to sell burglar alarms, and so, he would go into people's homes, and he would refuse to leave, and he'd say, well, now that I know that you don't have an alarm system, it would be unscrupulous for me to leave because you're unprotected.
Mm.
So, until you agree to be protected, it's just, and I just can't do that, which is also horribly manipulative.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so when we started talking, it was pretty interesting. We were talking. I mean, we were all very successful at what we did, but we didn't like how it felt.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that that's a problem with a lot of people when they think about selling. They think about, slimy manipulation kind of stuff. And we didn't like that. And
Yeah.
so we started to figure out, we started to look at various disciplines to say, well, how do you help people? How do you help people make a decision without manipulating them?
Right.
And so we looked at all the business literature, and there wasn't anything. And so we started to look, at nursing. We started to look at the healing arts. We started to look at the clergy and into psychology and really try to understand, how do you help people make decisions that are in their best interest. And that's where the methodology came from. And it is all questions. It's all questions from the beginning of the methodology to the end of the methodology. It's nothing but questions. And it's not designed to manipulate or persuade. It's designed merely to help them get clarity about what's most important in their lives. And to the extent that what you have on offer is aligned with that, and they'll assimilate that into their lives.
Right.
If what you have isn't aligned, then then what you try to do is help them realize that it isn't. And so, this happens to me all the time. So, one of the shortest sale I ever made in my life was at a technical school in New York City. And they had put out the call, and they were interviewing several consultants. And she was a newly minted MBA and taking over her father's company. And I walked into the room, and she was sitting at a big glass desk, and she said to me, so what can you do for me? And I said, I have no idea what I can do for you. And so we just met 20 seconds ago. I said, my belief is that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And so until I learn more about you and your school and your goals and what you're trying to accomplish and what the obstacles are, I don't know if I can help you. Maybe I can, maybe I can't.
Got it. Wait, I want to stop. I want to rephrase that. Prescription, what was it? Prescription without
before diagnosis is malpractice.
Yeah, I love that. That is great. That is quite the gem. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So, as soon as I said that, she slammed her fist on the desk and she said, "You're hired." To do what? She said, "I don't know, but you're the first guy, the first consultant who's been in here today who made any sense to me at all. You're the only one who's concerned about me and focused on my issues instead of trying to sell whatever it is they have in their bag."
Right.
And so, that was my shortest one. But I just had it happen again, a couple of weeks ago. I was introduced, to a client by actually a mutual friend of ours, Daryl, I called the guy, and he said, well, how much is this going to cost me? I said, I don't even know what we're going to do.
Right.
And he said, well, what is it you do? And I said, what I do for you, I don't know, because I don't know anything about you or your company or your situation or, what's going on or what your issues or problems might be. So, if there's a fit, then we'll find something, and then I'll be happy to give you a price. But I really don't have any idea. That really threw him. So I always take that approach.
Well, it's just a good approach, and it really helps people, because I think that a lot of people, like I love how you use the term collaborative selling, because it really is. I mean, I have a deep-seated belief that a business should solve a problem. Like, you go to the dentist's office because your teeth hurt or you're in pain, and so you go in like in pain and crying and sad on the front end, but then you leave, and I always consider the business as a black box that performs its magic, and you leave on the other side, happy, smiling, beautiful teeth on the other side, and that's that problem that you're solving. So I love even like you said, like prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. I love that, because It's just the right thing. It's not about pushing products on people who don't need it and like making sales. I think that's really the wrong mentality. And that may have worked in the old world, but today where the internet and things are so transparent, I don't think that works at all. And in fact, I think that's a great way to shoot yourself in the head, is just to have that approach and to try and steamroll people. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, but the collaboration is also critical for commitment. So if you think about this, supposing you got sick and you went to the world's greatest doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and you walk in and he says, hi Daryl, it's great to meet you. Here, take these pills. Great to see you.
Right.
Would you take the pills?
Right. Yeah, it's tough to say.
I mean, even though he's the world's greatest doctor, and you might believe that the right, you're looking at that and you're going, he didn't ask me any questions. He didn't take my vitals. He didn't do any diagnosis. So how do I know if it's the right pill or not? And so there's no commitment on the part of the customer,
Right.
to comply. Right. And that's one of the biggest issues in medicine today is compliance. Is, doctors give, patients a regimen or a pill or a whatever, and they don't take them.
Yep.
Well, why not? Because they're not committed to that.
No, and the meetings are so short now. Like,
right. Well, they've been pronounced upon. Daryl, I've looked at your test results and determined that you need to take these 3 pills. So take this one in the morning, this one at noon, this one at night, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
right.
And you go home and you go, do I want to take that pill? Is that pill good for me? What are the side effects? My legs are going to fall off. I'll never have sex again. You don't know.
Yeah.
And then you turn on the TV and you got, not only all the drugs with the side effects, but then you have all the, the attorneys,
General
suing everybody over the, so you sit there and you go, do I want to take that pill? I don't know. I mean, I really have to be a partner in my own healthcare to understand, why I should be committed to that regimen.
Well, and also another thing that, but something else
it's the same thing in business. If just because you're the guru and you say this is what you should do doesn't mean that somebody's going to do it.
Right, and that's so important in any business. I was just talking about that this morning. I'm working with a client, and he's been very successful, and he's got like a 35-year track record, and he thinks that one of the keys to his success has been that the sale doesn't necessarily happen when someone gives you money. That's really when that's when you have to validate the sale. Just because someone gives you money once, exactly what you're saying, there's no buy-in from the client. You really need them to comply and them to be on board, and then you need to, because especially if you want them to get results with what you're doing, because almost everything you do, unless you're doing everything for them, they have to, even like if you're cutting hair, if the kid's not, if you're not sitting still, if your head's flopping around, if you're not part of the process, it's hard to get you the result that you desire. And then also from a business perspective, how are you going to sell that person more if they're not on board and if they're not there with you? So I'm on board. You got me on board. I'm sold.
Yeah. So anyway, that's basically what what the whole philosophy is about. Is really a lot of interrogatory and really exploring, and then we don't start the collaboration process until they ask for help. So my view is that you can't coach into no demand, right? You're a coach, you get that. If the person doesn't want to coach, you can talk at them all day long. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So until they ask for your help, until they say, what can you do for me, or how can you help me, or what products do you have, or whatever, until they're open to that, there's no point in even trying to collaborate. And then the collaboration phase is really about literally sitting side by side with them and co-creating a solution. So, we still are, pitching too much. I mean, people call me and they say my sales team's not getting the results they want. And I said, it's because they're pitching too much. And they say, well, you haven't been out with them. And I said, do you want to bet? Well, it's how people sell. They get excited about their product. They're full of product knowledge. They're full of all the benefits, and they want to, pitch and pitch and pitch and pitch. But people aren't, if they're not open to listening, then all that is wasted. And so, you've got to do the exploring phase until they say, okay, now I'm interested. What do you have? And even then, it's not, here's your solution. It's, here's an option.
Mm-hmm.
One option would be to do this. Another option might be to do that. Another option might be to do that. And then they start picking like a Chinese menu, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about this? What about that? So I mean, I was just talking to a person the other day, and they were spending 2/3 of their week writing proposals. They said I never write proposals. They said, well, how do you not write a proposal? And I say, because what is a proposal? A proposal is my vision of what you need. Okay, what are the odds that my vision of what you need is going to exactly match your vision of what you need? It's 0 or something close to 0.
Yeah, because they're two different people, and
exactly.
Yep.
2 different points of view, 2 different sets of experiences. The whole thing. So what happens? You spend all this time pouring your heart into a proposal, and you think, oh man, this is the perfect solution.
Right.
And you lob it over the wall, and the person on the other side looks at it and they go, yeah, I don't really like this, and that doesn't really fit, and I wish there were more of this, and I really don't think I need that part. Oh, this is cool. I'd like a lot more of that. But then they look at the price and they go, well, that doesn't work either. Right? It's either too big or too small, or I'm paying for all this stuff over here that I don't want, and I'm not getting enough of this stuff over here that I really want more of.
Right.
And so the whole thing doesn't work. And so what do? Right? So they can either call you up and have a big confrontation, hey, Daryl, you completely and totally missed, should have more of this, less of this, I'm paying over here for this, and then they have a confrontation, which most people don't like, so I don't want to do that, I don't want to have a confrontation because that'll hurt Daryl's feelings, and I'll have to get all exercised and whipped into a frenzy to tell him how badly he missed. So it's just way easier to say, well, Daryl, I'm thinking about it. Put it aside. I'm going to go ask the committee. I'm going to whatever. Well, the fact of the matter is that, even if they wanted to fix it, nobody's got time today. Everybody's doing 5 jobs.
Right.
Right? They have kids. They have lives. They don't have time to fix your proposal.
Yep.
Okay, so they put it aside and they never get back to it. It never happens.
Right,
About 70% of all the proposals that are put out there, and you don't even get a response, let alone a no. You just don't get any response at all.
Right.
So, it's just a shot in the dark. So I don't do that. So it's collaboration. So, what I say is, Daryl, if you say, geez, Rick, those are great ideas. Can you write me a proposal? I say no. So here's what I'm going to do, Daryl. As long as you're willing to sit side by side with me, we can co-create the perfect solution. And put, including budget. We don't just do the solution; we do, money too, right? It's all got to match.
Right.
It's a total solution. As long as you'll sit side by side with me, we can co-create the ideal scenario, and we'll figure it out. If you're unwilling to do that, right? If they say no, I don't want to do that, you just go do it. I say, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not what I do. And I pass because it's a waste of time. I'd rather go find somebody else who's willing to sit side by side with me.
Right.
So I used to have a bank of file cabinets in my office of all the proposals I wrote that never went anywhere. And one day somebody asked me, what happened in your successful proposals, and I realized they were in my desk drawer because those were all the clients I was working with. And I went through and looked at them, and like, all these people sat with me and co-created this, and all those people over there refused to sit with me. And that was the end of that. I just stopped doing it.
Yeah, because your times, that's the thing that we haven't talked about at all here. We haven't talked about the time of the sales rep or whoever that person is that's engaged.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's a huge, because it's a huge component of it. I mean, I was just reading a book. What book was it? Anyways, I was reading, The Success System That Never Fails, W. Clement Stone's, and they're talking about how, just documenting your time and that, how much time do you spend actually selling versus hanging out at the water cooler, all this sort of stuff like that. But even like what you're talking about here, how many people are you spending, you're already doomed, like you're already set up for failure. Exactly like you said, you're supposed to imagine what they want and send them some sort of magical piece of paper that knows what they're thinking, feeling, and what budget they're looking to spend, and going from there versus exactly that. that custom fitting it. And that's such a huge thing. Like, I'm a marketer, so I'm on the other foot where I don't do a lot of face-to-face selling as much as I should, even just to keep my teeth sharp. But humans have this unique thing where we want things that are custom built for us. Nobody goes out and buys a shoe. You go out and you buy a running shoe, a hiking shoe, a walking shoe, a dress shoe. It's the same thing, like even for the clothing you buy. I'm buying gym clothes. I'm buying...
And you also want it in your size and your color.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that that's... I think that that's really key. Now, does that impede with a company's ability to have a standard service offering or something that they can deliver that allows them to scale? Because I'm sure some people listening to this and are like, I can't, customers are going to want too much variety. I can't keep up with that. Do you think that that's really an issue, or do you think that, I'll let you answer that question.
It depends. So in basic offerings, you can certainly get started. Right, but then as you look to premium offerings or custom offerings, right? So I mean, in the information business, there's the here's my general information, and there's the do it with you program, and then there's the do it for you program. And what are they? They're higher levels of customization, right?
Right.
But they also come with a corresponding price.
Right. Of course.
So it depends. It depends on the business. And there's definitely a school of business out there that says, look, you make what you make, and then go through 5 million people if you need to find the people you need to buy your standard product.
Right.
That is very expensive, and it's getting more expensive.
Right. Yep.
So and it works. But you have to go through a lot more people to find people who want your generic offering.
Right.
To the extent that you can, custom tailor it, and very often companies have multiple products, right? So they have, if it's a software company, they have different tiers and different levels and different modules and different whatever. And so again, you write this proposal, you go, well, here's the modules I think you need, instead of sitting with them and saying, which module is most critical to you right now? Well, the first one would be this. Okay, what about the next one? What about the next one? What about the next one, right?
Right.
So I mean, like Infusionsoft's a great example, right? They have all kinds of, software and plugins and whatever, but, for me, it was about finding this is what I need in my business right now.
Right.
And then I know that it has these other things that I can add. So, I mean, I just add fix your funnel. Great. So, now I've added that, I've learned how to use it, and that's helped my business, and now I'll go and I'll add some other pieces. And so, most businesses are not just one thing. It's not just one simple product.
Of course.
Right? There's choices within that, right? So it's about helping them to tailor that. And the other thing we haven't talked about is the willingness to walk away. So I mean, this is one of the hardest things to teach that when I'm working with salespeople. I say you have to let go of the outcome. And they say, what do you mean? And I say the process is about solving this person's problem, which may or may not involve your product.
Right.
Okay. Well, they can't get their head wrapped around that because it's my job to sell this product, and I need a commission. You don't understand. My kids need shoes, right? And that's not, that's not what it's about. Because when you're in the mode of my kids need shoes and I need this sale, the customer knows that immediately.
Yeah, they can sense it.
They feel it immediately.
Yeah.
Right? And usually it's blatant in the things you say. I mean, I had a dentist once a few years ago here who said to me, he literally looked me in the face and he said, he'd asked me, when are we going to do this cosmetic dentistry? And I said, well, I want to get braces first and straighten the teeth because I think that we should fix the foundation before we put on the siding.
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, well, how am I going to make any money on you?
Huh.
I mean, it was like, dude, what planet are you on?
Yeah.
I don't come here because I'm trying to feed you.
Yep.
I come here because I'm trying to fix my teeth.
Yep.
So, but that was blatant. But that's what most salespeople are thinking when they're out there, and you got to let go of that. You just let go of it and you focus on what's there. I was in a call this week, really fascinating. I wish I had it on video. Might have been the best sales call of my life. But we just started out. I just started out talking to the guy about his, CEO, about the vision for his company.
Right.
And he said, I want to build a great company that honors God. Now, you kind of had to be there, but they just built this spectacular building with, it was like a museum, and it was full of all this extraordinary art. Money was not an object when they built this building, trust me.
Right, okay.
And here's a guy saying, I want to build a great company that honors God. And I looked at him and I said, it looks to me like we've built a pretty great company already. And he said, oh, no, we're good, but we're not great. And I said, well, tell me what great looks like. And we just started this conversation, and it didn't have anything to do with why I was there.
Right.
And as we started the conversation, he said, one of the things I think is that I'm not communicating very well with people, with the people who work for me. And, when we used to be small, I used to get to, coach everybody individually, but now we're huge, and I get branch offices and people all over the place, and I don't even know some of these people.
Right.
And I want to write a book. I want to write a book and tell them about, how we think and how we're different and how we can build this great company. And I said, so he said, I started it. I started writing it over the weekend. And I said, would you be willing to send me a copy? I'd love to read it. And he said, I'd love your input. I said, I'd love to help you. And he said, well, could you get it published for me? I said, yeah, I can. I know a lot of, we could self-publish it, and there's a lot of places to get that done. And, this has nothing to do with why I'm there.
Of course.
But I'm helping him
You're
do what he
providing value.
needs to.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then we started talking about his son. I'm not sure how that came up, but he was talking about his son. He's 23. He's lost, and he, has, he's trying to figure out what he wants to do for a living, and, whatever. Well, I have a great book I always recommend, which is The Defining Decade. So if you're in your 20s or anywhere close to your 20s, you should grab a copy. Everybody I've recommended to loves it. It's awesome. And, so I bought 2 copies of the book, and I, wrote in one, I said, this one's for you, read a chapter and then discuss it with your son. The other book's for your son. And I sent it along, and, and the more we talked, we started talking about literature, and we were bonding over literature, and, what are you reading, and what are you reading, and what do you like to read, and hey, I just read this, and have you read that, whatever. And, at the end of that whole discussion, he looked at me and he said, well, how much is this thing anyway? And I said, $20,000. And he said, I want to put 3 people through it. So, $60,000.
That's awesome.
And it was much more, when I teach collaborative selling, what I say is it's not about finding facts. How many people do you have, and how much are your revenues, and all these facts about the company and the organization.
Right.
It's really about it's aligning with their values, feelings, and goals. And it was an extraordinary conversation, because in the course of 45 minutes, he and I were like brothers from another mother. It was like. Yep. We were able to bond over our common values and our common love of books and business books, and and what he was trying to do in the company, and and how I was able to help him and just to move forward in general in his life.
Well, yeah, and you really understood him and who he was. Like you really sought to understand him before you cared about him understanding what you had to offer at all.
Right. And in the end, he didn't care. He basically said, I like you. If you're telling me this is a good program, I'm in. You have 3 people, I'm in.
Right. Yeah,
it was a non-issue.
Yep.
And so, that's sort of an idyllic scenario, right? I know all the people are listening going, oh yeah, man, if I could just, do that, like, be good. Well, I agree. I don't have those every week, but that's really the goal, is to find how can I bring value to this person. And again, for me, it's much more about, a healing ministry, right? Than, right. That's just trying to be the doctor I could be in an MD kind of way. Yep. And it always works for me. So,
I mean, even
that,
even even how we met, you took the very same approach. We went out for lunch and had a really good conversation. And again, it's almost in some ways, depending what you're selling. I mean, in some ways, there's just so much more to it because there's a lot. I mean, I always say there's the two most difficult things to do with another human that require the highest degree of trust and confidence and faith in the other person is get someone to give you money and get someone to have sex with you. And of course, we're painting in broad strokes because we all know people that are the exception. But generally speaking, it's a really scary thing in both instances. You have to be vulnerable, right, because of what they represent. And you just. No, I really, really like it, and it really resonates with me, and I'm sure a lot of people on the call, they feel the same way. And just even when you describe it, like, and you talk about this guy putting 3 people through it, I mean, one, you sold him, but I feel like you'll also get a better long-term relationship out of this client because there's just such a good foundation to it. And that's something that people, I think that that's something that maybe we're losing in today's day. It's something I've really noticed having moved from Canada to California. We may have talked about this a couple of times, but I just feel that here people treat each other as if they're more expendable, in a lot of ways.
Well, they are. They are.
Yeah.
And, I told you where I grew up with where there were 52 homes.
Right.
It snowed there. It got bitterly cold there. The last thing you want is to have pissed off one of your neighbors and be standing by the side of the road with your car broken down on a cold winter night when there's only 3 cars are going to go by in the next 6 hours.
Right.
You better hope the first guy looks at you and goes, "Oh, I want to stop and help this guy."
Right. Yep.
We were very dependent on one another, to get through life.
Yep. And
if somebody had a fire or a flood or a death in the family or whatever, everybody was there. And it was a very supportive community. And California, I love. California has an enormous brain trust, but, many of the people who came to California came here sort of to be independent. I want to do my own thing.
Right.
And so I'm going to go to California where, nobody will interfere with me doing my own thing. And, as a result, I think culturally California is much more selfish.
Yeah, in a big way.
In general, I'm doing my thing, and if you want to come along and do your thing with me, then that's okay. But don't interfere with what I'm doing. And but I'm seeing it's interesting. I'm seeing in the entrepreneurial communities, both North and Southern California, that's starting to turn a little bit. They're starting to really build community and realize that, if we're going to turn America around, if we're going to turn the economy around, that, we're going to have to be more cooperative than we've ever been. And, and you're in a mastermind group with these folks, and you see it, and we're starting to see a lot of these organizations develop, and the organizations are coming together and saying, how do we get all the organizations to cooperate to help the entrepreneurial community to turn the economy around. And San Diego's becoming it's becoming one of the top centers in the world for entrepreneurs. So
yeah, which is nice. I mean, I don't want to paint too much of a bleak because I've met some phenomenal people here in such as yourself. I mean, you've been a wonderful friend and advisor and client, and so it's just been amazing on that respect. But I think, just again, to go back to your approach to sales, to treat the person like a person and to really have them feel helped and understood. I mean, when was the last time anyone really took interest in you and gave, people tell me I'm great at being interesting or interested versus interesting. I got that compliment. I was at a conference in Vegas, and I got that compliment from like 5 people. They said the same thing. They said, you are really good at being interested versus interesting. And they all use the same language. And I don't know if people were talking about me or what, but I think that that's really important because when was the last time someone really stopped in their day to listen to you? I love that example. I know it's an ideal scenario, but to have listened to the CEO, to heard his vision, to get in tune for that. I mean, that's even why I've got a couple of interns working for me, and the reason why people even want the internship is they want to be able to prove themselves because, hey, if I'm here and I'm working and I prove myself, then that a lot of people are hoping to find that as a route to get work experience but also get a job. And it's true because some of these people, I don't want to let them go or have them move on at some point. I want to keep around because by the time their internship ends, because they're going to know my stuff and all this so well. How am I going to find someone I can replace that with that gets me and what I want to accomplish? And, and even though they're only doing this small piece of it, they get how it fits into my greater whole. And so they get it. They understand. They're on board. You can't find and train that very easily. It's expensive and time consuming. So depending on the price point someone's selling at, I mean, if they're selling a $10 widget, that might be a little bit different. But still, at the same time, you're still trying to help solve people's problems. And I love your approach.
Well, or create an opportunity. That's the other piece. So, a lot of times people have huge opportunities in front of them that they don't know how to grasp, right? So it's not just solving a problem. It's also can be on the opportunity side of I'm working with a company right now. It's a merger of two companies, and looking at the enormous opportunity they have in pooling their talents and working together and being able to reach so many more people and add so much more value. And so it's really about taking advantage of the opportunity rather than, solving a problem, right? So, too often we're looking for the person to be in pain. They don't necessarily have to be in pain. There are a lot of successful people out there who say, hey, I got a lot of cool stuff, and how do I get to the next level, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So, what would you recommend?
I think we're on question one.
Yeah, that's right. No. I think it's been good. I'd like to ask, what would you recommend to people who are struggling with this? I mean, people who are having issues with their selling, I think we've hit off on a lot of key points. I mean, it's fine. The agenda is just there as a guide. I mean, really,
I know. I know.
It is funny though.
We just definitely riffed on that one.
Oh yeah, no, it was good. But what would you recommend to someone who's listening to this and they're like, wow, that sounds so great, but how do I get it might seem elementary to us, but someone who's really struggling with how do I implement this? How do I get started? How do I do more collaborative selling? How do I, turn the tables and reverse the approach? How do I even get going with that?
Right. Well, so, the big thing is to start with questions, right? So I have on my desktop at all times, I have a long list of questions to ask clients. And, if somebody, cold calls me out of the blue and says, hey, got this issue or this problem or this opportunity, I immediately go to my list of questions. So, I've been doing it for 30 years. I still keep a written list of questions there. When I go in on a sales call, I have a written list of questions. And people say, well, isn't that kind of unprofessional? You got to have a cheat sheet. I say, no, think about how the customer views it, right? Would you rather have your pilot come to the plate with a checklist and check his checklist before he takes off, or you want to go, oh, no, I've done this 1,000 times, this is off and the puppy and go?
Yeah, no, that's a great book, Checklist Manifesto, and that's the whole premise of the book. It's a sign of professionalism, because people forget, and we're humans and we're dilatory and we're absent-minded. Exactly that reason.
Yeah. So I take my checklist in and I go through my checklist and I'm very meticulous about it so that's the core of how you start. And most people are they're afraid to ask a question and they're afraid to ask a follow-up question.
Right.
Sometimes you'll say what's going on in your life and they go, oh my God, I'm going through like the most horrendous divorce in the history of planet Earth.
Right.
And the person, when I go out on sales calls with people, and I watch them and they'll sit there and they'll go, oh, I'm sorry. And then they switch. Okay, well, why do you think that guy brought it up?
Right.
Right. It's because he wants to talk about it.
Yep.
Right. And so the worst thing you can do is not talk about it.
Yep. Yeah. Be on your own agenda versus theirs.
Right. So I just say, gee, I'm so sorry to hear that. What's going on? And then, if they don't want to talk about it, they'll say, oh, well, let's focus here. And usually they do. They go, oh, geez, well, this, they get the kids, they get this and that, and they just, they're emotionally want to vent. They will, because they're human. We keep thinking that, just because you're inside a company, you suddenly become an automaton, and you behave like a robot, and it's just not true. Humans are human.
Yep.
And we need to be human in the process. So,
yep.
You ask questions, and if they bring things up, it's fair game, and dig deeper and, learn inquire, and when you're, when you understand their values, feelings, goals, beliefs, obstacles, and ideas, then usually by the time you dig through that, at some point they'll say, well, gee, can you help me, or what do you have, or, whatever. And then once you've gotten that invitation to collaborate, then you say, great, let's either do it now or set up a time to sit side by side and co-create a solution.
Right.
And it's not that hard.
Yep.
It just requires the discipline and the guts to be able to go do that. And people they're afraid to risk an opportunity to pitch.
Yep.
And to me, the opportunity to pitch, all it does is it says, I'm a selfish bastard, and you need to shut up and listen to me.
Right.
And, every time you take the time to ask questions, the worst case scenario is that you end up with a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a good relationship at that. A really good relationship at that. No, I think that's great, because that even, again, sales and marketing are tied so close together, but as a marketer, they say you have to begin with the conversation going on in your client's head. So when you bring up the divorce thing, if their day is distracted because that's what they're talking about, then they just need to work through that before you guys can be on the same level. I mean, that's really,
exactly.
You got to get into mirroring and synchronicity with someone, like you just confirmed. I mean, our brains are designed to connect, like a network of modems and internet. And exactly like you just did that right now. He said, right, like you pitched in to give me feedback to let me know that it's okay for me to keep progressing forward. And people need that. And if you're not in sync with someone, you're not going to be able to get the sale. So exactly, you got to slow down to come to their level, and then you got to work there together. It's really awesome content. Rick, I love your approach to business and relationships and collaboration. I just think it's just really... It's just really good. I really hope everyone on this call is taking notes, because there's lots of gems and little metaphors and things that, I mean, some of it might sound like common sense, but common sense is not all that common, and it's just really
it's not
good.
Common practice.
Well, yeah, it might
be.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's common practice. It's called practice for a reason. You have to do it over and over again. But the other thing I see out there is, people ignoring selling. Everybody wants to market now, because that way I don't have to get near any humans, right? I'll just sit at my desk. I'll sit at my desk and I'll market through my computer, and I won't have to touch anybody or be emotional. And that's not where the big bucks are. I can tell you that if you need to make a sale in the next 30 days. You're more likely to make a significant sale in person than you are, over the phone. You're more likely to make it over the phone than you are on the internet.
Right.
And, so, I mean, and if you think about, how do we market over the internet? On the internet, we use a funnel, right? We use little tiny things, there's, free things, and then we have a little, small price thing, and we build trust over time.
Right.
Because there isn't that personal face-to-face human, connection. Yep. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who say, well, I'm going to do all this internet marketing, and they're starving. And I say, if you're starving, let's go find 10 people right now.
Yep.
And let's see if we can get some cash in your pocket, because it's short term. It's significant, and if you're selling. The bigger the ticket, the more personal the sale has to be.
Yep.
So it's not one or the other. It's both and, right? They're two tools that go hand in hand.
Yep. And that's actually something I said this a few times, but I got a lot of praise from some of my mentors and peers at a conference, at a VIP session, when exactly like you said, all like all this internet marketing stuff, it's all just a way to try to scale that one-on-one sales presentation. I mean, it's a way to try to can and clone the sales process, but even sales letters, which were the original method of doing it, the written word, but the best copywriters in the world, they all said that they would knock on 100 doors to sell 100, and try and sell 100 prospects before they even wrote a letter of a marketing promotion, because they needed to understand understand the people's like pain points, complaints, their objections, their internal dialogue, the things that they would say, because they needed to address all those in the letter, because the letter is only good as their sales presentation. That's all they are. And what you said exactly, face-to-face, nothing will convert as well as one-on-one, face-to-face. And the next to that might be one-to-many if you're on a stage. And the next to that would be like one-on-one with an live interactive webinar. And the next to that would be one-to-many live interactive webinar. And the next to that would be like a simulated live webinar. And the next to that would be a live one-on-one phone call. And it just regresses that way through like video sales letter and all these things down to you get to just your text sales letter, because it's all just exactly like you said, it's less personal and it's less customized, and it requires a higher degree of fine-tuning. I mean, to get a sales letter that's really dialed in, you have to have had all those conversations. You have to have had, like you have had to have tried to sell that many people. And all you're going to do then is can and clone that into your sales letter or into your webinar or your teleseminar or your video sales letter or any of that. And I really think that's even I think when you deal with a sales team, forgive me, I'm stepping outside my bounds here into your world, and by all means slap my hand if I'm wrong, but I feel like when you're dealing with a sales team, it's trying to get the best conversation with their ideal client and then get everyone to do that, to mimic that, and to model that essentially. And I don't know if that's correct or wrong. I think it's equipping people with a tool chest of tools that they can use, but then ultimately you have to adapt it to the client. And like we talked about, using questions to take them from where they are to where, to coming to their own realization, whether it's your product or not. But it really comes down to having, getting the best guy on the team who's got the most experience, that really understands the prospect the best. Because to be the best sales rep, you have to understand the prospect better than everyone else. That's the only way you could be number one, is to really understand the people. Because otherwise, how do you gain the rapport, the trust? How do you really help them better than anyone else unless you know them better? Am I off on anything? Is that all?
No, you're exactly right. And that's why, I mean, whenever there's a new product out there that people are having trouble with, I say, there's a great saying in Japanese, genbitsu genbutsu, which is go to the place and see the thing for yourself. And that's really, and so, that's one of my mottos that I'm hanging on my wall. It's just, when people say, gee, I'm having this problem and I don't understand this or that or whatever. And I say, I have to come look. I have to go talk to the customer. I got to go talk to your sales team. I got to go talk to customer service people. I got to, let me go to the place and see the thing for myself.
Yep. Yeah.
Because that's where the insights come from, and that's basically what a great marketer does. I mean, you're seeing now in marketing, you're seeing anthropologists join the field of marketing.
Yep. Oh yeah, because it's
right. What is that about? It's about understanding, how does Homo erectus, think about and feel and behave in this particular environment around this particular thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, whether it's the design of a remote control or, the learning from an information product,
yep.
It's really understanding human beings and how they work and think and believe and, and interact.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. Yes, marketing is like just one giant psychology experiment. It's measuring the difference between what people say and what they do, or testing the difference between what people want and what pocket of people want what more and what capacity. And it really is. I mean, I like in marketing a lot. I mean, you do a lot of different things and you throw it up on the wall, and obviously you put your best foot forward. I mean, that's Gary Halbertism. He says fail fast. I mean, if you're going to go into a new market and do your best thing, you make the absolute best offer to who you think is the absolute ideal, the best person you could ever speak to, and you go with that first, because if you can't make that work, then you're in trouble. And you talk about a Japanese quote. I mean, one of the things that I love, and I've heard tons of different renditions of this, but I was told from a Japanese friend when I was in Japan about how the university campus, the Tokyo University campus, was expanded. And the story is basically they bought this parcel of land, which is a big deal. Most people buy and sell and trade buildings, but never the land, because it's an island and it's a finite resource. So it's a big deal if someone buys land, and very expensive. So this university had bought land, they cleared out the buildings, they had a project manager and a site manager, and they erected these buildings, and the site manager managed the tradesmen, and the project manager had the blueprints, and they'd erected the buildings, and they had the outside done, and the tradesmen were going through the buildings inside and doing all the finishing work. And the site manager came to the project manager and said, hey, your blueprint doesn't show where we should have any parks, where we should have any resting benches or water fountains or any of that for the campus. Where do you want them? We're pulling out of the heavy equipment. We're ready to do this. And the project manager said, we're just a few weeks away from when the school season starts. Let's just finish what we've already started and get those buildings ready for use, and let's worry about that stuff in the spring. And they had a bit of a fight back and forth because the site manager, he's like, no, everyone's here now. We should just do it now because we're here, right? Like, just do it. Everyone's ready. And ultimately, they went with the project manager, and what happened was over the winter, the campus was full of people and became alive, and people were like using it and going places and doing things. And then when the spring came and they went to go put in the landscaping, they didn't need blueprints because the people showed them where they needed stuff. The paths went from one door to the building that they were headed, and it showed them how wide it needed to be, and people would sat in the dirt, in the rest areas to show where they wanted to rest, and that sort of things, and they really just built it to suit to the people. And that's almost what happens with a lot of marketing. I'm helping a client with some ad campaigns now, and one of the things I'm saying is you have to understand is your ad campaign will almost never be as inefficient and ineffective as when you first get it started, because everything is an experiment. We have no idea. We just need to get some data, and as we get more data, we can refine it and then really dial it in to where we know who we should be targeting and like which ad, and and all that. It's that refinement process, and I think that's I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think that all just speaks to kind of what we've been saying, is that you go to the place and see it for yourself and get a really good look at the details and get granular. And anyways, it's really good, solid, and unfortunate it's not this get rich quick, philosophy that people want to hear and click these 4 buttons and do XYZ and money will fly out of your computer. But I think it's really solid fundamental practices, and I think over time,
well, it's community building. It's community building, and it always comes back to community building. And if you look at the people who are incredibly successful, they found their tribe, they found a few followers, and those few followers brought more followers, and they built community over time that aligns with their point of view. There are a lot of people who think what you and I are talking about is crazy talk, and screw that, get in, get the sale, get out. How many sales calls can you make in a day, and stop worrying about the customers, get the money and all of that. They have their tribes too.
Yep.
But that hasn't been my experience. It's not the way I want to be. It's not how I want to be remembered. It's not what I want in my legacy. One of the things I'm most proud about is that, I can take my sales book, my collaborative selling book, and I can hand it to a client and say, this is how I'd like to work with you over the next, 10 years. Mm-hmm. Now I defy you to pick up any other sales book and say, here, client, this is how we're going to work together.
Yep.
Because they're all about how you manipulate the client.
Yep. No, I agree wholeheartedly, and that's something where I think a lot of people, they don't necessarily realize that, when you get into a business, you may want to build the business and sell it, sure, but at the same time, you're still a reputation. There's still, if you want to build something and sell it, there has to be legs to it. It has to have that foundation, and that's I haven't built all these companies. I've helped generate millions of dollars, and I can attest to that when you talk about community building and I've seen the difference between guys that go in and they just suck out a bunch of money and try to run. And there's short-term money in that, but I just don't know if the trade-off is there, because how do you go back to those people? You start having places you don't want to show your face, and and there's I don't know, it works for some people, but it's not sustainable, and there's no real way you can build a real business. And I don't know many people that do make a lot of money that way, because there's no way to do that without burning bridges and relationships that are then just going to make it harder for you down the road, and just double, triple, quadruple the work for you. I just think that. Anyways, it's been a really good call that way. It's been very, very, very practical, and just very, no nonsense in business, and that's what I want. That's the kind of tribe and community that I really want, because I think those are the people. I mean, I set a goal that I may or may not share with you, but I want to help create 200 new multimillionaires who solve world problems with entrepreneurship. And that's legitimate, that's real, because I've helped generate millions of dollars, and even recently I helped someone generate $500,000. And it's I don't want to be tied to anything that's gonna you know what I mean, that's gonna come around and bite me because
Right.
I was associated with it. I don't want to be anywhere near that. So no, that's really, really awesome. All right, so Rick, do you have any favorite? We talked about a quote of yours. Do you have any favorite books that you would recommend, or did we already mention that? There was a book you mentioned. What was the one for 20-year-olds?
Oh, The Defining Decade by Meg Jay.
Defining Decade. Okay, got it.
But I just read 0 to 1, Peter Thiel's book. It's extraordinary.
Really?
One of the best for entrepreneurs. I just read a leadership book called High Altitude Leadership by Chris Warner. I think it's probably the freshest thinking in leadership in the last decade. It's the best book I've read on leadership since Jack Welch. Perennial favorite of mine is The Psychology of Winning by Dennis Waitley. I've memorized it. I'll probably dictate the book. And one of my favorite ones, when things were down, was Tough Times Never Last, Tough People Do. I don't know if that's print anymore, but it's by Robert Schuller. And, when it was written during the recession in the 80s, but boy, I'm telling you, it's perpetual truths. Tough times don't last, tough people do. If you're an entrepreneur, you got to be tough. You just have to get up one more time, right? Yep. Doesn't matter how many times life knocks you down, you got to get up one more time.
Up. Yeah, that's an old martial arts thing. It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. That's right. So, Rick, what are you working on now? What are you doing these days?
Well, as you're aware, I'm trying to launch max-rev.com, trying to get that up and running and trying to take all my content and move it online. Unfortunately, it was all built in the analog era, and so I've got to convert everything to digital and make it accessible to people. So I'm working on that, and then I'm coaching entrepreneurs and business leaders to try to grow their businesses. So.
Got it. Yeah, and you have phenomenal content. You've got content for days, stuff like this. You've been in the industry how many years now? 20 years?
33.
33 years. Got it. I didn't want to date you. But yeah, for
it does
33
date
years.
Me, but the fun part about it is every so often, like I'm on 33 now, and I think, well, when I'm 30, when I'm 35, I'm a big party, big celebration, and I've been saying that since year one, and somehow, I'm always so busy helping clients that I keep missing the anniversaries, and now it's been 33. So. If you keep your head down and you're focused on your clients, you're having a lot of fun. The years go by and it goes pretty fast, and it's very rewarding.
Oh, it's very, very rewarding work. How do people get in touch with you if they want to know more about Rick? You mentioned the site max-rev, max-rev.com. Is there any other sites or any other ways that people can get in touch with you?
They can go to overpromise.com. And learn about my overpromise, overdeliver work. So,
which is a great book,
by the way. An easy guy to get a hold of.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you.
And you're an easy
guy to get a hold of.
Yeah.
Well, I try to be.
Right.
Try to be.
Yeah, it wouldn't go over well if you weren't. It wouldn't be in tune with your message. But no, Rick, I can definitely speak from experience that you've just been, and just even people that I know that have dealt with you, there's the reason why after 33 years you're just getting better and you're just having higher degrees of success. And I think that once you get your online course up and launched, I think it's going to empower you to help a large audience of people in a way that's going to be exactly say it's very, very, very rewarding. And obviously, as we just proven this call, you just have phenomenal content, really good, time-tested, practical content that you just, that's something that's really important for me as well. I know, especially in martial arts, being a martial artist. There's always new bells and whistles and tricks, and hey, there's the, in the art I train, there's the berimbolo, there's the spider guard. Well, spider guard's actually pretty good, but there's like the octopus guard. There's all these like weird fancy things that come out, these shiny whistles, but at the end of the day, like the practical, fundamental, time-tested truths are what you want to use, because if I can use those and beat a black belt at the World Championships, that's the stuff I want to learn. I don't want to learn the stuff that's going to become irrelevant once I fight someone who's got more than 3 years of experience. And that happens a lot in the martial arts. And so that's something that I really glean from you and your content, is that the stuff that you help me with, and the stuff I've just discovered through working with you, it's stuff that will never leave you astray, because it's just rooted in things that are like, it's that, what did we say it was? It wasn't common knowledge, it was common practice. Right.
Just because it's common knowledge doesn't mean it's common practice.
Exactly. So, so all right. So anyone listening that wants to get in touch with Rick, he can be reached at max-rev.com. You said there was Barrera.com as well. Was that right?
Barrera.com, overpromise.com.
Overpromise.com. And you've got your books listed on Amazon, and it's Rick Barrera, Rickbarrera. Rick, thank you so much for your time today. As always, it is always an honor and a pleasure. Very much value you and your friendship and your time, and I really appreciate you just taking some time out of your day today to just share some of your genius and your wisdom with my listeners. So thank you.
Well, glad to be here, Daryl, and you have a great tribe, and love to help them any way I can.
Awesome. You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them, and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.